Hi gang, I'm glad you're all here. Thank you very much for joining me. Lately it seems like difference of opinions is not allowed anymore. Yeah, it's the year of 1984 where people are not allowed to have their own opinions, their own thoughts. The story called 1984, written by George Orwell, published in 1949, is probably the playbook for the elite, their agendas. The agenda, whatever it could be, is the only thought that anyone is supposed to think, the only narrative that people are allowed to think and talk about. And if you go against that narrative, you're blocked, you're banned, you're ridiculed, discredited, etc. Any means that they can. They'll even change the dialogue about the news. They'll change the dialogue of actual scientific discoveries, actual crimes that have been committed, were not crimes, but propaganda sent to you from another government. Yeah, which brings a lot of different things that have currently been happening to mine. Biden's laptop. Yeah, that was called a conspiracy theory. Human-caused global warming. Well, they changed that narrative. They kind of downplayed it a little bit, calling it now climate change instead of climate warming. We have to go to green energy. Everyone should buy an electric car. Well, how are those cars charged? By power stations that either work off of electricity, which comes from oil and gas or coal. Can't go 100% with wind turbines because they don't work in the winter. They freeze up. Solar panels are made basically in China with the use of, oil products. But I want to get to the latest trending headline. It's 70 degrees warmer on the eastern Antarctic and the scientists are baffled. Another headline, the Antarctic and Arctic undergo simultaneous freakish extreme heat. Both the Earth's poles saw their temperatures rise more than 50 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than average, respectively, experts report. Well, right now, both for the North Pole and the South Pole, because of the tip of the Earth, they are both receiving the same amount of sunlight. Same amount, exact. I guess when the word got out that global warming actually wasn't the complete truth, that our planet has gone through extreme changes in the past, it'll go through extreme changes again in the future, that's when they changed it, the narrative, to climate change. But there's not just one thing that affects the buildup of heat on the Earth, or even the deep freezing of the Earth, such as past ice age. You know, it's only been about 12,000 years since the last ice age actually officially ended. The Earth went through a mini ice age from volcanic eruptions. That was in 1815 from a volcanic eruption from the volcano Tambora. Models of how much we have to reduce our carbon emissions never included the naturally occurring release of methane from the Earth. Methane is stored mostly in permafrost, both there in the North and South Poles. I believe the amount of methane is about 35% more than the carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide than what humans are making. 35% more every year. This here is an article from 2016 about an anthrax outbreak because it was released from the permafrost because of the thaw. A similar episode happened in 1941. They called it then the Siberian Plague. In 2016, authorities said the outbreak was linked to climate change. For the past month, the region had been experiencing abnormally high temperatures that reached 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Anthrax spores can survive in humans, frozen humans, and animal remains for hundreds of years, waiting to be released by a thaw. Think of all the other diseases that are going to be released as our planet heats up. Smallpox, and probably other types of bacteria and viruses that we don't even know about because they were here on the planet before humans were. So what else could be warming up the planet that they're not talking about, that they don't want us to know about because it doesn't go along with the agenda of climate change, global warming? An article from 2014. This is put out by the British Antarctic Survey. Earth's magnetic field is important for climate change at high altitudes. New research published this week has provided scientists with greater insight into the climate changes happening in the upper atmosphere. Scientists found that changes in the Earth's magnetic field are more relevant for climate changes in the upper atmosphere, about 100 to 500 kilometers above the surface. So that would be about 60 to 310 miles above the Earth's surface than previously thought. Understanding the cause of long-term changes in this area helps scientists to predict what will happen in the future. The increase in atmospheric CO2 concentrations has been thought to be the main cause of climate changes at these high altitudes. This study suggests that the magnetic field changes that have taken place over the past century are as important. Many of you know that our Earth's magnetic field is weakening. While CO2 causes heat to be trapped in the lower atmosphere, it actually cools the upper atmosphere. The simulation shows that the increase of CO2 concentration over the past 100 years has caused the upper atmosphere at about 300 kilometers, which is about 190 miles, to cool by around 8 degrees. At the same altitude, changes in the Earth's magnetic field caused a similar amount of cooling over parts of North America. That's important. Keep that in mind. North America. But caused a warming over other parts of the world, with the strongest warming of up to 12 degrees located over the Antarctic. The new simulation also indicates that the rising CO2 levels have caused the densest part of the ionosphere to drop down. Yeah, the sky is falling by about 5 kilometers globally. So that would be a little more than 3 miles. Changes in the Earth's magnetic field can cause much larger changes, but they are very dependent on location and can be either positive or negative. Over the southern Atlantic Ocean, a decrease in height of up to 50 kilometers was found. That's about 31 miles that the ionosphere has dropped. 31 miles. While an increase in height of up to 20 kilometers, which is a little more than 12 miles, was found over Western Africa. The Earth now has 2 magnetic anomalies. It used to be just one down there in Western Africa. It originally was one location that divided into 2, which now looks like it's grown into 3. And look up over here at the southern Atlantic, where this article states that the sky has fallen by 50 kilometers, 31 miles, which is another magnetic anomaly, which looks like it's going to divide up into 2 sections. Goes all the way up there from, by Canada, Maine, comes all the way down through the Caribbean, Florida. Those that are new probably have not heard about my articles that I posted about the coming magnetic pole reversal or flip, where science has shown that the magnetic field doesn't automatically jump going from north to south and south to north, but we get weakening of the magnetic field in different locations around the world, kind of like divots on a golf ball. Weakening, growing, and growing, bouncing around. It would affect our GPS, our satellites, the migration of animals, and probably people. During that time, not only would we have extreme weather because it affects the jet stream and the patterns of the different weather going across the earth, but it causes earthquakes, it causes volcanic eruptions, etc. Here's an article from October 2017, a research paper on Springer Open about magnetic flux patches. That's what they call these areas, another term. And they have an image of these magnetic anomalies here. This research goes back 320 years, from 1630 to 1950, showing positive and negative magnetic flux patches that migrate in space and time. Alright, think of the divots on a golf ball. Besides, some of the magnetic flux patches are observed to behave in a more complex manner. For instance, the positive patch under the north of South America is decomposing in 1850 in two new patches, one migrating towards north to the east coast of North America, and the one moving in southward direction to the west coast of South America. A similar situation is also observed under the Atlantic, where a positive and a negative flux are splitting in two during the time interval from 1640 to 1730. The positive flux patch under the Pacific is growing in intensity and is extending its partial coverage. There's another link that I'll give you where they're tracking the magnetic field here on the Earth. They do have drawn out here the South Atlantic anomaly. Here we have from the German government, their study of the magnetic field. It says the Earth is exposed to a constant bombardment with energized particles from the sun and from space. Fortunately, the Earth's magnetic field protects us from this dangerous radiation. During the last decades, however, measurements of the magnetic field have shown that the Earth's magnetic field, and hence our natural shield, are weakening. Precise measurements by the CHAMP satellite reveal that the field strength is decreasing rapidly in certain areas of South America and the South Atlantic. Good old United States. The observed decrease is most prominent over the South Atlantic, with up to 12%, a decrease in our magnetic field in the last 30 years over the South Atlantic, which happens to coincide with the weak area of the magnetic field. Already now, space vehicles suffer the most of the experienced interference in this region, and the International Space Station, ISS, crews receive the highest radiation dose of their voyage here. It is therefore imperative to monitor the unpredictable future development of the Earth's magnetic field accurately. This task can be best addressed by low-orbiting satellites. The European Space Agency ESA fleet, with a 3-satellite swarm, is tailored for these challenges. There has been a lot of solar flares coming off the sun, and what used to impact us relatively minor has now been having larger effects upon the Earth. And I did an article about how we were directly in the path of a Class C solar flare that ejected from the sun on March 10th. It was a long duration solar flare, and that's the effect that it had there on the Earth. And then there was one, a couple days before. And these are different stations that were monitoring the KP index as we were impacted. In I hope you can read the names of the stations there. It used to be M flares were the ones that they worried about. We never had to worry about a C flare, and this is the effect of C flares. Space Weather published this on March 15th. One of the comments says, I thought something was wrong with the sensors. It's amazing how a C-class flare can spark a G3 storm, yet some M-class flares are not eruptive at all. When they talk about magnetic pole reversals, they often only talk about long-lasting magnetic pole reversals. They don't talk about the ones that were short being about 250 years. There was one about 42,000 years ago. Last Champ excursion, it's called. And it says here, the loss of the geomagnetic shield is claimed to have contributed to the extinction of the Australian megafauna, the extinction of the Neanderthals, and the appearance of cave art. Many of you may have seen the cave art where their hands were painted in red, and they believe that during that time, the people would paint their bodies in red ochre, I believe it was, to protect them from the radiation that was impacting the earth and, making people sick. And a lot of people disclaim that, but there was a time when a lot of animals became extinct during this time. So what the scientists did was dig up kauri trees there from peat bogs and other sediments, dating back about 40,000 years. And they found that the kauri trees had a detailed timeline of how the Earth's atmosphere changed over time. The trees revealed a prolonged spike in atmospheric radiation, radiocarbon levels caused by the collapse of the Earth's magnetic field as a pole switch, providing a way of precisely linking widely geographical dispersed records. Working with computer programs that simulated the global interactions between chemistry and the climate, it says they investigated the impact of a weaker magnetic field and changes in the sun's strength. Importantly, during the magnetic switch, the strength of the magnetic field plummeted to less than 6% of what it is today. A compass back then would have struggled even to find north. Just like now, and we are in a grand solar minimum. When this reversal happened, the sun was also experiencing a severe grand solar minimum. Throughout this period, during which the overall solar activity was generally much lower, but also more unstable, just like it's doing now, sending out numerous massive solar flares that allowed more powerful ionizing, I'm all tongue-tied, cosmic rays to reach Earth. And I'll give you a link to this article also. So the Earth has gone through changes in the past. It's going to go through changes in the future. And it's not just one thing that causes all this. Like I said, they don't add in the methane that's being released from the exploding sinkholes happening there in Alaska, in Siberia. Those of you that may keep up with events like that, you may know what I'm talking about. But their climate models never added in the extra methane. They didn't add in the weakening of the magnetic field, which cools the upper atmosphere, heats up the lower atmosphere in different locations where it heats it up in the other. They're not adding that in because it doesn't go along with their agenda. So, what are your thoughts? Please put those comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you very much for your support. God did send us a letter in the Bible. People don't read. But God did say that this earth age would end in fire. Please stay safe, and I'll talk to you later. God bless you.